Well, see, the thing is at East Coast, as Caleb mentioned earlier, we don't want to just celebrate Easter. We don't want to I love everything about Easter. I love the egg hunt. I love the extra candy at Easter. And today we're going to be gathering with my family and my brothers. We're going to get together. I love all that. But at East Coast, we love all that. But we don't just celebrate Easter. We want to experience Easter. That's my hope for you today, that we celebrate it and we also experience it. And what I know is with this many people in this building today and all those that are watching, there are some people that are, on the outside you look good. On the outside everything looks great. You got your Sunday best on, you're smiling, but on the inside things aren't right. Maybe at home things aren't right. Maybe in your body things aren't right. Your emotions, things aren't right. What I want you to know is this: you're here today, and you're here on the perfect day, because 2,000 years ago when Jesus hung on a cross, it didn't look very good either. It felt like God had left them, but 3 days it was coming back. On Calvary, it seemed like they were abandoned, but he didn't leave. The tomb, it was sealed. It looked bad, but God wasn't done yet. You might not have figured this out yet, but in October, I got with our team. We were planning Easter, and we were talking about this Easter, and I just prayed about it. And I said, okay, God, what is the theme this year for Easter? And the theme we came up with is that you would experience a miracle. We're calling it Easter Miracles. And the whole theming of our whole service is about miracles and the power of God and the presence of God. But if you go back to the Easter story in the book of Luke chapter 24, let me set this up for you, because Jesus had already gone on the cross. He already went to the tomb and rose again. But they didn't know it yet. They didn't know there was more for them. And maybe you're here today and you can relate to this story. It said later that Sunday, 2 of Jesus' disciples were walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus, a journey of about 17 miles. They were in the midst of a discussion about all the events of the last few days, talking about the death, the burial of Jesus, and him being in the tomb. When Jesus walked up and accompanied them in their journeys, they're just going on their journey, and Jesus comes up beside them. They were unaware that it was Jesus walking alongside them, for God had prevented them from recognizing him. Jesus said to them, "You seem to be in a deep discussion about something. What are you talking about? So sad and gloomy." I know there are people here that are sad and gloomy. I know there are people that we're here to remember the story, but you don't want to just talk about the story. You want to experience the resurrection today, that God could be so real. And I know a lot of us say, well, I don't know if I even believe in miracles. And maybe you believed them in the Bible, and we don't have any problem with going back 2,000 years ago and talking about the miracles of Jesus, where he fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He walked on water. He healed people. We can believe that, but I'm not sure if God does miracles today. In the Easter story, we're going to unpack that thought. He said they stopped, and the one named Cleopas answered, "Haven't you heard? Are you the only one in Jerusalem," talking to Jesus, unaware of the things that I'm quite certain he knew what happened, that happened over the last few days? And Jesus asked, what things? Here's my thesis today. If God quit working miracles, we're all in trouble. If God's not moving in our behalf, I need him to move. We're going to be in big trouble. And I think some of us settle. In 1 Peter chapter 1, Peter said, because Jesus was raised from the dead, which is what we're celebrating today, we've been given a brand new life. A lot of us, we appreciate that. We're so grateful that if we put our faith in Jesus, we're going to go to heaven. That's great. That's wonderful. But then he said something else. And you have everything to live for, including a future in heaven. And hey, by the way, that future starts right now. You don't have to wait to get to heaven to experience the presence and the power of God in your life. Here's my thought. We all need miracles in our life today. In fact, this was such a big deal to God that there's a prayer that Paul prayed. In fact, it's one of the most famous New Testament prayers. And this is what he prayed. He said in Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 16, "I pray for you constantly, asking God, the glorious Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, to give you wisdom to see clearly and to really understand who Christ is and all that he has done for you." Because I need you to not just believe it, not just go to a church that talks about it, but you need to understand it. I pray that you will begin to understand how incredibly great his power is to help us. Because I need you to understand, he said, in fact, it's the same mighty power that raised Christ from the dead. He said, I need you to know, not just believe in it, but I need you to know that and understand it, that it's available to you. In fact, he said, I'm going to dedicate a whole prayer to this. Now, If you go to our church, you know this. I have 5 kids, and one of the things that I like to do with my kids, and I've always done this, and all as busy as my schedule is and all the travel, I always try to make sure that I'm home and to drive my kids to school. I've done it with my oldest, who's 23 now, all the way down to my 10-year-old, and I always try to make sure I'm the one that takes them to school. There's a reason why I want to do that. I want consistency in their life, but I also I pray with them just for about 30 seconds, but then I always want them to hear these to be the last words that come out of my mouth, and I want them to start their day this way. I always end the same way. I love you and I'm proud of you. And then have a great day. I want them to know that. Well, one of my kids, my youngest, he likes to ask questions. And so we get into some of these discussions on the way to school, unlike the others. And he asked me a question here recently. He said, Daddy, what did you want to be when you grew up? I said, well, am I grown? He goes, no, when you were my age, what did you want to be? And I said, I don't know. He goes, well, think about it. I said, an astronaut. He said, well, why didn't you become one then? I said, because it was too hard to become an astronaut. He said, is that why you wanted to become a pastor? Because it was a little easier? I said, you're out of the will, my man. He recently asked me this true story. He said, hey, Daddy, I need to ask this. I need to understand this. Why did Russia attack Ukraine? Who's helping Russia? Who's helping the Ukraine? Who are we helping? Well, if we're helping them, then why is this still going on? And he asked me these deep questions. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, I just want to understand all of this. He asked me also just a couple months ago, he said, Daddy, when you were a kid, do they have knives and forks and spoons? Again, I told you, you're already out, my man. And so he wanted to understand. And Paul is saying here, hey, there's this power that's available to help you. And it's that same power that raised what we're talking about today, that raised Christ from the dead. He said, I need you to understand that. So this is what we've been doing for the last 21 days. I've been gathering with our team, and every morning we spent some time praying for all of you that are here today. And this is what we're praying. We're praying that you would, here it is, that you would experience a miracle. I don't know what miracle you need in your life, but I'm praying that you wouldn't just talk about the story of the resurrection, but that you would have it in your life. There's another verse that Paul gave, and it says the same thing. It's powerful. He said, the Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. This is like different. This might be different for someone. Like, you didn't know this, that the Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead could live in you. And just as God raised Jesus Christ from the dead, he will give life. He wants to give life to your mortal bodies, your mortal marriages, your mortal relationships, your physical body, your dreams. He wants to give life. How is he going to do this? By that same Spirit living within you. What I know is this, that there are people in this room that have some things that are dead and are dying in your life. Some things that you need some resurrection power to touch. And maybe you just thought, like I was raised in a church where we talked about this. We believed in it, but we never knew we could experience anything like this. We believed the story to be true, but we didn't know we could experience. He said, hey, I'm praying that you would experience this in your life. I don't know what's dead or dying in your life, but here's some thoughts I have. Maybe relationships. What I know is this many people, there'd be people that have some issues going on in relationships. And what I have found out to be true, there's no greater pain than relational pain. I don't know, it just feels different. When things aren't right in your relationships, it affects every arena of your life. And I have found the greatest pain to be when relationships aren't right. I don't know if it's marriage or if it's with your kids or if it's with a family member or a friend. That could be where you need some power. Maybe your emotions. Again, on the outside you look good, but on the inside you're crushed. On the inside, it's just not working for you. You just feel like you're just one more event away from falling apart. I think some people, it's your physical body. Maybe you've got a bad doctor's report, and you forgot that he's still a healer today. He wasn't one, because if he just worked miracles 2,000 years ago, I'm in trouble. I need him today. How about this? Shattered dreams. Maybe that could experience some power. Here you are, you're sitting in this room today, and 20 years ago, this wasn't the plan for your life. You didn't dream you'd be where you are today. I mean, you want it to be different, and you just don't know how to change it. And how about this? Your spiritual life. And that is, you feel you're far from God. you want to get closer to him, but you're not. And there might be some people who've been close with God, but you've drifted away from God. And maybe you're like, I don't even know if this stuff's real anymore. I don't even know if this God thing is even real. And these are real things that people experience. And Paul said, he said, the great apostle Paul, next to Jesus, probably the most famous biblical character. And he wrote over half the New Testament inspired by the Holy Spirit. Paul said, I'm going to sum up my life. And he did it in one sentence, which I think is profound. Like if you asked me to sum up your life, I'm not sure I could do it in one sentence. He said, this is what I want out of my life. And he summed up it all in one sentence. And he said in Philippians chapter 3 and verse 10, he said, all I want, I want to know Christ, which I think makes sense. We all would want to know Christ. And then he said something else, and not believe in it, not know the story of the resurrection, but that I would experience the power of his resurrection. Like I would have a miracle in my life because it's available to me. Several years ago now, I have a dear, dear friend and in our church, and her and her husband were with us when we first started the church. We were meeting at Indian Trails Middle School, and we started there just, we were such a popular church start that 2 people came to our first service. 2. And we counted, back then the first year, we counted pregnant people for 2. If you that's it, and that's how we started. And at any rate, a few years ago, she came to me and she devastated news that her kids, one of her children, got pregnant. And she came and she said, I need to talk to you. Could you meet with me? And I said, yeah. And she said, I need you to pray with me. They've been diagnosed with spina bifida and it doesn't look good. And when I met with her, you know what would have been a terrible thing to say? Is, hey, friend, I know God did miracles a long time ago, and I believe they happened in the Bible, but I don't believe they have. I don't think I can do. I mean, that wouldn't give her any hope. Well, I got some great news. That's been in several years. Baby is born strong and healthy. There was a miracle that happened there. If you come here, you know this, that I always start our first of the year in January. We call it 21 days of prayer. And we just pray for 21 days. And it's just kind of a routine that we do. And we just kind of all focus in on 21 days. We just believe if you'll start the year off praying, it'll make the rest of the year better. But how we end that 21 days of prayer is like this. We call it a big prayer service. We all gather together in this auditorium here. It's a packed out event. And a lot of people come and we pray. And what we do is we have all the pastoral team lined up across the front here. And we end by praying individually with people. And so the rest of the prayer time is just all real corporately. We all just kind of pray our own, but at the end I'll pray with them and along with our other pastors. And so what happened was it was our first year in this building. It's about 7 years ago. And so people come in and they pray. They line up in the middle aisle here, in the side aisles. And it was just so random. Who you get to pray with is a very random thing. And so I'm standing right here actually. And then this little boy just came up and said, I didn't know who he was. I didn't recognize him. And he said, hey, Pastor, will you pray with me? I said, sure. I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, hey, Pastor, I need God to do something for me. I said, okay, buddy, what's up? He said, my dad drinks a lot, and he's hurting my mommy, and we're leaving him. I need a miracle. And, at that time, you just can't say, well, buddy, I'm sorry. I know God did miracles a long time ago, but I don't have any hope for you. How many know our God still works miracles today? Okay? And this is what Paul said. He said, hey, that you would experience the power of his resurrection. And here's why I think people wouldn't believe that. I call these myths about God. We have these myths about God, and I don't know, it kind of got brought in through the religious system, and I think here's some people believe this. Number one, that God doesn't really care about my situation. That God's far away, he's ethereal, he's got bigger fish to fry, he's got other issues, and God's not interested in the details of my life. I think there's another myth about God, and that is that God is mad. Like, don't mess with God because he's mad at me anyways. Have you ever had like a boss who's just mad one day and happy the next day, and you're not sure what kind of mood they're going to be in when you go into work, so you kind of just stay away from them? You know what I mean? You have like teachers or parents that are like that. You're just not sure. And so here's what I know is if you stay away from people who are mad, and there's a lot of people, the devil put this lie on the church that God's just mad, and so people are staying away from him. And how about this one? That God doesn't hear. Like, I pray, but it's just a waste of time. Here's another one, that God is dead. That God's dead, but the reality of it is this. What we know to be true is this, that God does care. Number two is that God is very close to you. He's only as close away as an invitation from you. And that God hears. We know when we pray, God hears. And then this is God is very much alive. That's why we're celebrating today. In fact, I get asked this question from people out in the community. I'll be out in the community and someone will come and say, "Hi, aren't you the pastor from East Coast?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they go, and sometimes they'll say, "Well, what kind of church are you?" And what they're trying to do is find a label. They're trying to put a tag on our church. And what they mean by that is, like, are you charismatic? Are you Baptist? They're trying to put this, and I don't like the tags. Because I know what tags do. They define something. But honestly, if you were looking for a tag for our church, I think this is what it is. We believe God cares, God is close, God hears, and God is very much alive. That's what we believe about God. That's what we know about God to be true. Now, someone says, "Well, I need a miracle." Like, I qualify. Like those things you said. And if it's true that God does care and God's close and God hears and God is alive, how do I get a miracle? Like, I need one. Well, here's how. Number one, I'm going to give you 3 thoughts. I'm going to do this in 9 minutes. We'll be done. How do you do this? Number one is do not shut God out. Because it's so easy to shut God out of your life. It's so easy to do that. In fact, I always ask people, I say, if it were me, here's what I would do. I challenge people to give God 1 year of your life. Go all in for God. Because I'll tell you what is a powerless prayer. A prayer that won't get you many results is this. God, I want you in my life for some of my life, but not all my life. Like, God, you can have some of me, but not all of me. Here's the reason we pray a prayer like that, because I think we think that if we pray a prayer like, God, you can have all of me, I think we think that God's going to make us weird or strange. And we're not sure we want to go there. And so I always tell people, give God one, test it, prove it out. Give God 1 year of your life. Go all in for God for 1 year and just see after 1 year if your life is better. Like, do the test. If this is real, this is a big deal. In fact, I'm going to throw something out to you that's kind of risky because I've given this challenge out to a lot of people. And whether you're in this room here or in that overflow or in the lobby, wherever you're watching this from, if you've taken the 1 year challenge here at East Coast Believers Church, and you went all in for 1 year, and your life is better for it, I want you to raise your hand right now. Let people see. Look at all these hands up. And I know it's a risky thing to do that. People went all in for 1 year, and you can't shut God out. And here's the deal, because a lot of us are trying to get to God, and we think, if I can just be good enough, and if I can just be Christian enough, and if I could just read my Bible enough, or be generous enough, and a lot of us are trying to earn our way into God. And here's what Paul said in Galatians. He said, man, you're doing this, you're following a very different way that pretends to be the good news, but is not the good news at all. You're being fooled. Like, you think, honestly, that the way to get to God is to be good and to pray a lot and just go to church. He said, hey, that's not the way to get to God. You got to make room for God. You got to invite God in. He's waiting for you. He said, if I could just get you to do this. In fact, I teach in some Bible schools across the nation, and even in the Bible college here, our Bible college, I will teach in it. And if you've ever been to my classes that I teach, I almost always in my class about 10 minutes early. And there's a reason why I do, because here's what I found out a long time ago. Blessed are the short-winded, for they shall be heard again. Right? You know, but number two, here's the reason why, is because I wanted to give the students an opportunity to ask me questions. And I got asked a question. I was teaching in another state, and I got asked this question by a student. I'd never been asked it before. And he said this. He said, hey, if it was your last message, what would you preach? I never really thought about that before. I said, well, let me think about it. And I thought about it. I said, you know what I'm the most passionate about is this. If I had my last message, here's the message I would preach. Open your life up to God. I promise you'll never regret it. It's the single best, because we've been taught that God wants something from you. We don't know that God wants something for you. Open your life up to God. In fact, here it is. He said, if you would come close to God, God will come close to you. It's that simple. I heard this week, one of our staff, they were telling me the story about that they had invited someone to come to Easter. And that person said, well, I can't come to Easter because if I come to Easter, I'm afraid the building will catch on fire if I go inside of a church. And his friend beside him said, hey, no, I thought the same thing too. And I went there and it didn't catch on fire. We kind of have this thought that we can't come to God because we're just not perfect. And he said, hey, all I want is you to come close. Just like, don't shut me out. Open your life to me. I'll come in. Hey, there's a story, you know it, and you all know this, like Jesus hung on the cross and he was in between two criminals. And you remember the one criminal mocked him and the other criminal, remember he said to Jesus, he said, hey, Jesus, would you remember me? Just remember me. And he had this moment of humility, this moment of, hey, like my whole life I've been a screw up. My whole life I've made poor choices, and my whole life, like I deserve to be on this cross. Because I've just done everything that I wrong in my life, and here I am. But at the last moment, he cried out and said, God, I want to come close to you. And imagine if he showed up in heaven, and a religious person said, hey, what are you doing here? Your whole life you've been a screw up. Your whole life you've done wrong. He could say, hey, you know that guy hanging on the cross? He said, I could be here. I get asked this question a lot because I've been in a lot of hospital rooms where people have died and family members who lost someone, and they get concerned about where they're going to spend eternity. And they say, well, I don't know if they were great people of faith. I said, that's okay. You don't have to be a great person of faith to get to heaven, because Jesus said if you just have a little faith, you could move a mountain. Just a moment. That's all God wants is an open door. There's the story. Remember the woman who broke open the perfume jar over Jesus' feet? And remember, he was sitting there and she broke open this jar and she's crying tears. And remember the Pharisees were like off in a distance and they were like, who is Jesus? Look at him. He's hanging out with all the wrong people. And remember Jesus said, he stopped and he goes, no, these are the very people I want to be with in my life. And he made this statement. He said, thousands of years from now, we're going to be talking about this woman because of who she is. They didn't think he should hang out with her. He said, by the way, we're going to be talking about you thousands of years from now, Pharisees, but in a different kind of a way. So just come close to God. Number 2, do whatever he tells you. Here's the thing about miracles. Sometimes God will ask you to do something that doesn't even make sense. God will ask you something, hey, like it's time to surrender. It's time to go back to your family and apologize. And and sometimes you don't know what's on the other side of that step of obedience. Like you could be here today and it's like, I'm going to go all in for God today. It doesn't even make sense. But on the other side of that, you're a miracle. And I to illustrate this, there's a story in John chapter 2. It's the first miracle that Jesus performed according to the scripture. It said, the next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. So he's just set up. They got this big wedding, and Jesus is there, his mom's there, and you got the staff is there. And something happened in this wedding. The wine ran out and during the festivities. And so, I got to tell you, give some context here, because back in the Bible days, the big deal back in the Bible days was like the wedding ceremony was kind of a non-big deal, but the party after was the deal. Kind of like in America, we do it differently. I meet with couples and we go through, detail after detail down to the second of how they want their ceremony to go. It's all about the colors and what song is going to be going on with it and all that. But that wasn't a big deal back then. It's the party after that was a big deal. So when they ran out of wine, this was a huge social faux pas. Like, this is a big deal. It'd be like if there was Instagram back then, it'd be hashtag no wine. That would have been the big hashtag after this party. And so Jesus' mother says, hey, to him, they have no more wine. I don't know why she said they have no more wine to him. My thought could be this, that maybe she was just kind of visualizing at that moment that, hey, you remember the angel appeared to you and said, you're going to give birth to Jesus. He's going to be the Son of God. I don't know. Maybe when Jesus was just a boy or something out swimming in the pool or something, everyone else is swimming and Jesus kind of skips across the water. She's like, swim, Jesus, don't show off. I don't know. But she said, hey, and he says back there, men, you want a life verse? Here it is. Woman, that's not my problem. Take out the trash, quote John chapter 2, verse 4. Hey, that's not my issue. Jesus replied, my time has not yet come. And then she gave the servants some very powerful news. Do whatever he tells you. All I can tell you is, when you obey God, there's a miracle on the other side. Let me wrap it up with this thought, that we have to trust God. And this is a biggie, because I know, like in Christian terms, church terms, we'd say have faith in God or believe God. I'd say trust God. And you say, well, it's so hard for me to trust. And I get it. I get that it can be hard to trust. But you know what I have found out? When it's hard to trust something, the best way to overcome that is get close to that person. Because the closer you are to them, the more you're going to trust them. My wife, we've been married 27 years. And she's fantastic, and she's a great mother of our 5. And she really is. She's devoted, and I trust her. I can go anywhere in the world and leave her here, and I know everything's going to be okay. And I have an immense amount of trust in her. And the reason I do is because I'm close to her. Our staff, we have a great team here, and we have 27 staff that work here at East Coast, and we've never had this great of a team that we have now. They just are incredible. And I trust them immensely with this, running this operation. And here's the reason why, because I'm close to them. And you want to know how you get trust in your life? Get close to something. Get close to someone. You say, I have a hard time trusting God. Well, get close to him. Here's what I'll say to you. If you go to our church, you know I like to tell stories. And I like to illustrate messages. And I'm always looking. In fact, if you ever tell me your story out, if you didn't hear much, you'll hear me say, hey, someone's going to call you from Creative, and we're going to film that because I'm going to use that one day. Or sometimes I'll call you and say, thank you for telling me that story. Can I use it? Because I love stories. Because they communicate something different than just teaching. And today I want to share a story with you. But instead of me talking about it, we went ahead and filmed it. So I want to show you a story about a person who had an encounter with God and they experienced the resurrection power. Go ahead, guys, show this story.
This is it. If I do this, nobody is going to care. I remember I went into the kitchen and I'm sitting there and I take the knife out of my mom's kitchen and I'm ready to end my life right then and there. So I'm Kyle Clark, 25 years old from Montgomery, Alabama. Didn't really grow up in church. That wasn't my family's forte in our immediate home, at least. There was a lot of turmoil in our family. I just remember always constant fighting. At that age, you don't really know what's going on. You just see mom and dad fighting a lot, going through a lot of issues, going through a lot of things. My dad and mom had a moment where they just blew up, arguing, cussing, getting in each other's faces. And we got back into the house, pulled into the driveway, and my mom said, that's it, I'm done. And she said, the kids are going with me. I remember my dad being frustrated, throwing things around the house. I remember being broken down, and it really devastated me. We were switching between my mom and dad every single day. Going through all of those things started to mount up where everything just seemed to hit me at one time. I remember my family's all asleep. It's 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm frustrated, I'm crying, I'm upset. And I had this moment where I said, this is the moment that I'm gonna end my life. Crying, I'm cussing out loud. Like I'm thinking to myself, nobody cares about me. I definitely don't think my parents care about me. And so I'm just thinking about, why would I wanna live this life? And I went in the kitchen, I grabbed a knife, like standing there, and I'm ready to do it. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is it. If I do this, nobody is going to care. I remember battling the mental and emotional just turmoil of it, like this could end. I can find peace if I do this. And I wasn't scared. It wasn't that I was scared to do it, because I was ready to be out of pain. I was ready to be out of depression. But luckily, something stopped me. And I remember that night I went to bed, getting as little sleep as I did, and the next day, I had it made up in my mind that I wasn't gonna let anything stop me. And so I kid you not, I'm outside, it's probably 10, 11 o'clock at night, waiting for my family to go to sleep. I'm outside on the front porch crying. And I'm crying, and these two girls that luckily were in my class and rode the same bus with me and everything were walking down the street in my neighborhood. And they see me and they come over and everything, and they said, well, hey, why don't you come up and shoot basketball with us? And just we're talking, and one of the girls, she said, well, hey, why don't you go to church with me this Wednesday? But they took me, and I just remember my first experience. I walked into a youth service a lot like what we get to do now here at East Coast, and I walked in and my first ever youth pastor, and he wanted to know my name. He wanted to know football I was playing. He was a football player. But he said something that really marked my life that night. Hey, I'm so glad you're here and I love you. Having somebody tell me that they loved me for who I was, despite of all the things that I had been through and the person that I was at the time. And I had never heard that before, that like Jesus actually could live with you, that he's not just this dead, figure or this dead person, but that he's alive. All the things started weighing on me of, the shame and the guilt and the breakup and the parents and the family, all those different things. And I had heard that night that I don't have to deal with that I could give it to God, that God could heal it, that God could take care of it. And so in my room, on my knees, I had a moment and I started bawling, crying, and I said, Jesus, from this day forward, I'm gonna give you everything I got. But I'm feeling Jesus right there with me saying, hey, I'm ready to walk in relationship with you. When I say feel, I'm not just talking about goosebumps, but I'm talking about I felt that there was peace, that there was joy, that there was hope on the other side. I found freedom, not just from my past, but I found freedom from my future. Now I have a beautiful wife who loves God. She's amazing. I could not do what I do without her. And honestly, I'm thankful to God for her, and I can't thank God enough just for the partnership that I have with her. The other thing is I have an incredible son that is 1 year old. To see that, hey, it wasn't just something that Jesus did to change my life, but that it's going to change the trajectory of my family. My dad even, has come to me and said that because of what God did in my life, that he knows this God stuff works. My brother was heavily into drugs, prayed that prayer of salvation, and now he's been sober for 2 years. I get emotional just thinking about the blessings that God has given me. I've seen God take my broken heart. I've seen God take my broken family. I've seen God take my broken purpose, and I've seen him bring life into all those situations. God has taken all the broken things in my life and he has healed them beyond measure.